Praise the Lord. Peter here. I've been looking forward to this day for a long, long time. I wanted to visit you. I wanted to come into your home. But I wasn't ready. It is my heart's cry, my heart's desire, that these words from Isaiah would become life and liberty and strength and encouragement for everyone who listens. See my servant whom I uphold, my chosen one in whom I delight. I have put my spirit upon him. He will reveal justice to the nations of the world. He will be gentle. He will not shout nor quarrel in the streets. He will not break the bruised reed nor quench the dimly burning flame. He will encourage the faint-hearted, those tempted to despair. He will see full justice given to all who have been wronged. He won't be satisfied until truth and righteousness prevail throughout the earth, nor until even distant lands beyond the seas have put their trust in him. Lord, that these words be life and liberty and hope and freedom to all those who are in bondage. There was a time I was dead. I was a young man when I died. I chose to die. I chose to die because I felt I could not handle any more pain. And I chose by an act of my will, when I was a young man, to pursue pleasure, to use my will and my intellect to go through this life and to do those things that the world applauded. And when I chose that road, I died. And the tragedy was I did not know that I was dead. I did not know that I was dead. And I built a world for myself. A pretty world, a fascinating world, a luxurious world. And I worked very hard to build it. I used all the discipline and all the hard work that I was capable of mustering up. And I became totally deaf to the voices of all those who lived outside of my world. I couldn't hear or feel the pain of anyone else, because I was in such frenzied pursuit of my own goals, goals that the world applauds, lavishly applauds. And according to those who viewed my life, I was a beautiful clay pot that was proudly displayed on the center of a dining room table and could be viewed from all angles because it didn't have a flaw. At least it looked like it didn't have a flaw. By an act of my will, I had put a tourniquet around my heart, and I could no longer feel pain. I could not feel my own pain. I could not feel the pain of God. I could not feel the pain of others. I had become totally deaf. I was a prisoner and did not know it. I was lost and did not know it. My heart turned to stone and I did not know it. And one day, many years later, I was quite successful, as the word defines success. And one day, God took the blinders off my eyes and showed me how thin the veneer of civilization was that I was wearing. I had an awesome encounter with God. I had an awesome vision. Maybe something like happened to Paul on the road to Damascus. And when I got my bearings, and I came to, I woke up. I woke up in a mental hospital. And strange as it may seem to those of you who are listening, for the first time in my life, as I remember, I felt free. I felt safe. It seemed that the wardrobe, the veneer, the plastic part of my life was gone. I felt terribly vulnerable. But I felt safe. I had been so afraid of losing my mind, so terribly afraid. I had been so afraid of losing control. I had been so afraid of breaking down. But it's the best and the most beautiful thing that ever happened to me. For the first time in my life, I was not able to see who I was. I was able to see that there was an awesome God. I remember the vision so well even now that I had, that I seemed to just electrocute my whole nervous system so that it was impossible for me to be anything but what that I really was. I remember going to a chair in our living room and kneeling at that chair in the middle of the night, compelled to kneel. Compelled to kneel. Everyone in the house was asleep. But I felt compelled to go there and kneel. And I tried to say the Lord's Prayer. And when I got to that part, Thy will be done, I could not remember the rest. And I started at the beginning. And every time I got to that point, Thy will be done, I could not remember the rest of the Lord's Prayer. And I finally said in my spirit, said, Lord, what is Thy will for my life? And the first thing He showed me is how I had wasted my life. How much of a phony I had been. He showed me how shriveled up my soul had become. And then I said, Lord, what is Thy will for my life? Again. And He showed me to myself on top of a little hill. I was running down that hill and I stubbed my toe on a little mound of dirt our children had built to pop a wheelie as they ran their bicycles down the hill. And as I ran down the hill, I stubbed my toe. And this had actually happened. And in this vision, I went up the hill, ran down the hill, stubbed my toe. I was taken back up to the top. I ran back down. I stubbed my toe again. And it happened over and over. Until I said, Lord, what are you trying to show me? And he said, I want you to slow down, Peter. And after I heard those words, I saw a sea of large boulders, large granite boulders, many different sizes, many different shapes. And they seemed to represent the hearts of men growing cold. And they were in great agony, those boulders. And I said, Lord, what do those boulders mean, and what do you want me to learn from this scene? And he said, Peter, this is the condition of the hearts of men. They're dying, and their souls are in great anguish, but because of pride, they are unable to ask for help. I want you to learn the language of those whose souls are dying. I want you to learn to speak to them, even though they're not asking for help, because they're asking for help, but nobody can hear it. And after that reply came, I saw another scene, and it seemed that there was a planet that had gone out of its normal orbit and was racing in the direction of this planet Earth. And unless something miraculous happened, the collision of our planet Earth and the other planet would be inevitable. And a voice spoke to me and said, is there anyone who is willing to stand in the gap and stay the hand of execution, of judgment for this world? And I felt as if all of heaven was poised to hear my decision. And I agonized. I agonized like I have never agonized before. And I finally said, Lord, send me, just like Isaiah wrote. Send me. And then I saw one more thing. I was standing, and by the way, as soon as I pledged my life to serve, the planet returned to its normal orbit, and I knew that this world was safe once more. And the very last thing that I saw in this vision, and I'm not prone to have visions, it's the first one that I've had. I was standing at the edge of an abyss, and I was holding on to a rope. And the rope went way down into a pit, so far down it was impossible to see the bottom. And there were two people hanging on the rope, a man and a woman. They were both friends, but I was not sure of their identity. And they were pleading with me silently to pull on the rope and to bring them to the surface. And I considered the consequences, because I felt that if I would bring them to the surface, they might pollute the heaven that God was building. But their cries and their pleading was so desperate. I determined to pull on the rope, and as I did, I slowly came out of the vision. But I also felt as if the very filth of hell had been poured into my soul. Every conceivable bit of abomination, every conceivable bit of filth and anger and lust was poured into my soul, and I felt utterly dirty. And I cannot remember how late it was, what time of the night, but it was still night when I came out of the vision. And I played this game with myself. I said, Lord, if I can hold on and live until the sun rises, if I can hold on to my mind, I will live. And I stood at this large plate glass window in our living room, and I looked east, and I strained at the horizon, maybe an hour, maybe two, motionless, agonizing. And when I saw the sun come over the horizon, I knew I would live. And I went back to bed, and I slept for a short period of time. But that same day, I collapsed. And when I woke up, I was in the mental hospital. Small hospital, maybe 40 patients. I was first on the locked ward. I saw some awesome things. There was one man on that ward who always wanted to play chess with me. And he pleaded with the doctors to operate on him, because he believed that he had swallowed a cactus and it was stuck in his throat, and he was continuously gagging. And there were others whose stories I cannot now remember. But suddenly I was aware of a pain, of a torment that existed in the hearts and minds of people that I had never seen before, I had never known about before, I had never cared about before. I was totally deaf to the afflictions of others. But in that hospital, something happened. something happened to me. God began to soften my heart. And I made the commitment, and that was more than 22 years ago. I said, Lord, I don't know how, I don't know when, but I pledge my life to alleviate, to heal, to bring comfort and hope to those who are in emotional and mental prisons. Those whose minds and emotions are so gridlocked they don't know which way to turn. Those that see absolutely no way out, no exit sign. Use me in any way that you want to. To this I pledge my life.